The anime begins by showing a high school girl named Umaru Thoma, who lives with her older brother, Taihei Thoma. Taihei is an office worker who is very dedicated to his job. One night, Taihei plans to stay overnight at work because he has to finish his work before the set deadline. Umaru had scolded her brother for always putting his work first. Although annoyed, she did not deny that Taihei worked hard to fulfill her needs and pay for her hobbies. Before leaving for work, he advised Umaru to go to bed early so as not to wake up late the next day. But she didn't seem to obey his words because she spent the night watching anime and playing games while eating her favorite snacks. The next day, Umaru woke up at 8 o'clock at night because she had slept all day after staying up all night. Afterward, she came out of her house and stood on the veranda to freshen up. At the same time, Taihei arrived home and was surprised to see Umaru enjoying the view at night. She argued that she was waiting for him. A few days later, Taihei invited Umaru to do community service around the apartment building they lived in. At first, she refused his invitation because doing the job would only drain her energy, whereas she plans to spend time lazing while watching anime or playing games. However, Taihei continues to suggest participating in community service so that the building owners and their neighbors do not view her badly. Not long after, Umaru and Taihei meet Nana Ebina, Umaru's classmate living in the ground floor apartment. Ebina is seen pulling weeds that grow in the yard of the apartment building. Seeing her pulling the grass with her hands, Umaru became interested in doing the same. Surprisingly, Umaru became very excited about pulling the grass, even though she struggled to do it. After working together to clean the yard, Umaru and her friends decided to rest while enjoying the snacks Taihei had prepared. However, suddenly Ibina's face turns red from sitting next to him, whom she has a crush on, and she gets flustered whenever he gives her compliments. Later, Umaru, who was in disguise and using the UMR identity, accidentally met her classmate, Sylphynford Teshibana, or Sylphin, who was training because she would soon be joining a soccer match. Upon hearing that, Umaru remembered that she would also participate in a soccer match at their school and compete against Sylphin's team. Seeing Umaru talented at playing soccer, Sylphin asks Umaru to teach her. Although not a professional soccer player, she turns out to have enough soccer knowledge and doesn't mind teaching Sylphin. The next day, the football match finally started. In this match, Ebina will be Sylphin's teammate, while Umaru will be on a team with Kirie Motoba, her classmate who greatly admires her. When the match started, Sylphin immediately showed the results of her training and managed to score a goal against the opponent's goal. Even though her team outperformed Umaru's team at the beginning of the match, Sylphin showed her individuality in playing and ignored teamwork, so Umaru and her team took advantage of this and managed to turn things around. Knowing that Umaru's team was far superior, Sylphin finally realized the importance of teamwork in soccer. Although Umaru's team won the match in the end, Sylphin received praise from her teammates for her ability to play soccer, which was considered quite great. After that, Sylphin, who was still ambitious to beat Umaru in every way, was seen practicing playing volleyball with UMR, who was none other than Umaru. Sometime later, Umaru, watching an anime about school life, commented on the protagonist, who is very friendly and easy to socialize with. She wants to be friendly like that so she can have many friends. However, she turns out to be not confident enough to make friends with other people because she always thinks they might not like her and refuses to be friends. While at school, Umaru was envious of her schoolmates, who were very friendly and easy to socialize with, and she wanted to be like them. Then, she remembered Ebina when she tried to befriend Kirie. At that time, Kirie was cold and ignored Ebina. Umaru then asks how Ebina feels when Kirie refuses to be friends with her. Ebina told her that she was embarrassed. But this refusal did not give her up because she wanted to be friends with Kirie. Ebina then suggests to Umaru to try to make friends with other people because at least she has tried. After receiving support and advice from Ebina, she finally decides to try to befriend Sylphin. Surprisingly, Sylphin apparently overheard their conversation, so they finally became friends and went home from school together. Meanwhile, Taihei, who was at work, decided to go home soon because he had to prepare dinner for Umaru. His co-worker, Takeshi Motoba, who is none other than Kirie's older brother, told Taihei that he wanted to stop by his house for dinner. Since Taihei didn't seem to mind, Takeshi invited their co-worker, Alex Teshibana, to accompany them. At first, Alex was about to refuse their invitation because he preferred to be alone. However, Takeshi tried to convince him to go to Taihei's house, so he complied. Taihei finally arrived at his house with them, immediately introducing them to Umaru. Seeing Alex's half-blood stature, Umaru thought of Sylphin and that he was a bit like Sylphin. Surprisingly, Alex turned out to be Sylphin's older brother. But most surprisingly, he has a hobby of watching anime and playing games, just like Umaru, so they immediately become close. A few days later, Umaru heard her schoolmates talking about her. They say she has an older brother who is an actor, half German and half Japanese. She did not know where the hoax news came from and why they spread such hoax news. After that, Umaru, disguised as UMR, was invited to Sylphin's house to help her study ahead of their exam. Umaru was very surprised that Sylphyn lived in a large traditional Japanese house. In addition, she was also surprised by Alex's collection of posters and action figures displayed all over the house's walls. Sylphyn then took her to the library, where they would study together. She finally realized that her schoolmates might have misunderstood because the only student at the school who is half German, half Japanese is Sylphyn. Sylphyn has an older brother who is quite handsome, even though his profession is neither actor nor celebrity. During her day off, Umaru, who had just finished cleaning her ears with an ear pick, got scolded by her brother for keeping her ear pick in its place because it broke easily. Sure enough, Taihei accidentally stepped on the ear pick placed on the floor, so it broke, and he decided to buy a new ear pick after work. After that, Umaru, who had just woken up, felt an itch in her ear and looked for the ear pick. But she couldn't find the ear pick anywhere, so she told Taihei to go home and buy the ear pick for her. Knowing this, he bought several ear picks in various types to make it easier for her. But Umaru instead asked him to clean her ears using their usual ear picks. The next day, Taihei asked Umaru to help him clean the house because only he had always done the work so far. Umaru argues that if she cleans the house, he will feel very bored on holidays because there is nothing to do. Hearing this reason, Taihei became angry and scolded her. He then teaches her some tricks to make cleaning the house more fun. Surprisingly, Umaru became diligent in cleaning the house after learning the trick, so Taihei no longer needed to nag because now their house was always clean. But at the end of the week, he got really bored because he didn't have anything to do. And later, Umaru intends to go to the cinema with Ebina, Kirie, and Sylphyn. One day, Umaru, who was relaxing with Kirie at her house, was surprised by the arrival of Alex, who brought the latest game and intended to play it with her. He gets to know Kirie and invites her to play a game with them. But since Kirie wasn't very good at playing games, she just watched Alex and Umaru, who was passionate about playing the game. Seeing the closeness of Umaru and Alex, Kirie suddenly felt jealous and tried to keep them away. But her efforts are useless, and Umaru becomes even closer to Alex. A few days later, Umaru told her brother she wanted to buy the latest game called Mogu Mogu Watching. After buying the game, she thought that game was intended for children who feel confident can win the game in a short time. But unexpectedly, she could not win it, even a week after buying the game. She even had to play for 10 hours to get the rare items she wanted. Taihei was surprised to see Umaru addicted to playing the Mogu Mogu Watching game. Even the people around him also played the game, including Alex. Realizing that playing games constantly can have a bad impact, he tries to change her habits to stop her addiction to playing games. A few days later, after playing the game more healthily, as taught by Taihei, Umaru could win the Mogu Mogu Watching game and get the rare items, along with the announcement that the latest version of the game will be launched soon. The next day, Kirie, who was about to visit Umaru's house, was surprised by the presence of Alex, who had been there first. He apparently came to her house because he wanted to give a gift to her. Surprisingly, it turns out that Alex also intends to give a gift to Kirie, and it's a coincidence that Kirie comes to visit Umaru's house, so he can immediately give it to her. After that, Kirie intended to throw away the gift Alex had given her because he gave her an action figure that wasn't her favorite item. However, Kirie immediately gave up because she remembered that no one had ever given her a present, so she decided to keep Alex's gift. One day, Umaru, who was in the mood for hamburgers, went with Sylphyn, Ebina, and Kirie to a fast food restaurant. Usually, Umaru eats hamburgers alone at home and doesn't enjoy it much. But when she eats hamburgers with her friends, Umaru feels immense pleasure and happiness when eating hamburgers. Sometime later, Umaru, who was relaxing at home, was approached by her brother, who asked about the Christmas cake she wanted. Last year, she asked her brother to make a Christmas cake decorated with Santa Claus dolls. But because she already plans to go with her friends on Christmas Eve this year, she asks Taihei to make a Christmas cake that will be served on the 25th of December. Having no plans for Christmas Eve, Taihei and Takeshi decide to go to the Anasong concert with Alex. Christmas Eve arrived. Umaru, Sylphyn, Ebina, and Kirie are walking around enjoying the city view on Christmas Eve. After that, Sylphyn invited them to visit her house so they could celebrate Christmas together. Meanwhile, Taihei and Takeshi seemed excited to watch Anasong's concert with Alex. Arriving at Sylphyn's house, Ebina and Kirie look very impressed because the house is big and filled with Christmas decorations designed to add to the house's beauty. While sitting together, Ebina noticed an extra seat cushion that Sylphyn had prepared for Umaru. Not long after, Sylphyn fell asleep because she was too tired. Before going home, Umaru, Ebina, and Kirie wrote messages and Merry Christmas wishes for Sylphyn on the greeting cards provided on the table. When she was about to go home, Umaru got a message from Sylphyn inviting her to come to her house. The message was addressed to Umaru, but because she had just activated her cell phone, Umaru had just read the message. Umaru then asked Ebina and Kirie to go home first and argued that she had left her belongings at Sylphyn's house. On the way home, Ebina accidentally met Taihei, who had just returned from watching the Anasong concert. They finally went home together, and Ebina looked nervous around him, especially when several people who passed them said that they were like couples. In the meantime, Sylphyn, who was fast asleep, dreamed of her past when she decided to go to Japan following her brother, who had already lived in Japan, to attend school. Sylphyn remembers how she started playing the game and became so fond of it that she became the expert she is now. She finally wakes up and finds a Christmas card written by her friends. Not long after, she was surprised by the appearance of Umaru wearing a Santa Claus costume and wishing her a Merry Christmas. She was very moved and invited Umaru to come in and celebrate Christmas with her. Long story short, the new year has arrived. Taihei gives Umaru an envelope filled with money as a New Year's gift. However, he seemed out of focus as he gave his sister a New Year's gift twice. He apparently intended to give the other New Year's gift to Ebina, and after realizing that he had given both gifts to Umaru, he asked her to return one of his gifts so that he could give it to Ebina. A few days later, Umaru, who used to complain about her brother always nagging her, finally realized that Taihei was actually the best older brother in the world. She intended to give him a New Year's gift. But then, she was very surprised when Taihei informed her that he was going out of town because there was work to be done there. Umaru thought Taihei would be gone for a long time and suddenly felt very sad. But it turns out that he has only been away for 2 weeks and tells her to be more diligent in cleaning the house, so the house would always be clean. The next day, before leaving for a business trip, Taihei gave Umaru 10,000 yen for 2 weeks' allowance. Takeshi thought Taihei was too stingy with his sister, so he gave her 10,000 yen as extra pocket money. Takeshi then told Umaru that they were going to Hamamatsu, famous for its variety of eel dishes. Since Umaru had never eaten eel, she demanded to go to Hamamatsu, even though Taihei had warned her that they were not going there for fun but for work. He apparently didn't go alone to Hamamatsu but was accompanied by Takeshi, Alex, and their manager, a young woman named Kano. While on the train to Hamamatsu, Taihei suddenly remembered Umaru, who was alone at home. Surprisingly, she secretly followed her brother and boarded the same train as him. Not wanting to get into trouble, he was forced to hide his sister's whereabouts from Takeshi and the others. Taihei took the opportunity to invite Umaru to eat eel at a well-known restaurant. But because it was still too early, they decided to take a walk to see the city sights. After that, they saw a statue that was sacred to local residents. Then, they touched the statue because it is said that whoever touches the statue will get happiness. After that, Umaru asked about Kanao to Taihei. He says that Kanao is his superior, even though she's younger than him. Kanao got the manager position because she was the daughter of the company's owner. After enjoying lunch with a delicious eel dish, he asked Umaru to go home immediately. In the evening, Taihei and his co-workers visited a restaurant, where they were later hired as the chef's assistants. At the same time, Umaru, on his way home, remembered what her brother said about Ebina, who said she was looking for her older brother. Ebina had not seen her brother for a long time, and the only news she received was that her brother had now worked as a chef in a French restaurant. Hearing that, Umaru became curious about the figure of Ebina's older brother, who was said to have left the house when Ebina was 7 years old. Turning back to the restaurant, Taihei received praise from the chef for his ability to cook. Taihei told him that he only used to cook for himself and his little sister. They then offered him to work at the restaurant as a chef. However, he politely declined the offer, saying that he was very grateful for being able to learn a lot from the chefs at the restaurant. Taihei looked surprised when the head chef introduced himself as Koichiro Ebina and wore the exact same hair tie that Ebina wore. After 2 weeks of working at the restaurant, they finally returned home. Arriving at the house, Taihei was very surprised to see the messy condition of their house and immediately scolded Umaru. After that, he intends to distribute gifts to his relatives and neighbors while shopping with Umaru. Ebina didn't expect to get a gift from Taihei and was very happy about it. Likewise, Sylphyn welcomed Taihei and Umaru's gift even though Alex gave her an eel pie. After shopping and eating dinner, Taihei looked at Umaru and seemed relieved that his sister seemed fine despite being left alone for 2 weeks. However, she told Taihei that she was very lonely without his presence at home and had cried for several days because she missed him so much. A few days later, Kirie, who won the national swimming championship, received appreciation and praise from her classmates. However, Kirie, who initially felt very happy and celebrated the victory with her classmates, suddenly changed her attitude when someone accidentally dropped her bag. She immediately grabbed her bag swiftly, as if she was hiding something very important inside her bag. On her way home from school, Kirie stops by Umaru's house and tells Umaru about her victory in the swimming championship. Umaru then praised her while saying that she would become a great swimmer in the future. Upon hearing that, she suddenly became gloomy because she aspired to be a manga author and didn't want to be a swimming athlete. Kirie secretly often makes Umaru the protagonist in a story she wrote in a book. Because she always carries the book and keeps it in her bag, Kirie becomes very protective of her bag so that people don't know about the story. Later, Sylphyn introduces Umaru and the others to her mother, who is quite young and has a very attractive physical appearance. She told Umaru and the others that her mother had won a kimono wearing competition in a short time. Sylphyn's mother also showed her ability to dress Umaru and her companions in kimonos and managed to finish it in no time. After wearing a beautiful kimono, Sylphyn invited her friends to take pictures together and celebrate Hina Matsuri by holding a banquet at her house. The next day, Kirie shows Umaru a comic story she wrote and asks her opinion on the story. Although Umaru honestly said that the comics written by Kirie were pretty good, she still seems less confident in her ability to draw Umaru perfectly. But after that, she asked Umaru to be her model, and she drew Umaru, which would later be used as a guide for writing the next comic story. While watching Umaru's face closely, Kirie thought her chibi mode looked similar to her normal mode. Not long after, Kirie was surprised by the appearance of Taihei, who had just come home from work. Knowing that Kirie is Umaru's friend, he offers Kirie to have dinner with them. However, Kirie politely declined his offer while arguing that she had to go home soon to finish her painting. In the evening, Taihei invites Umaru to go shopping and have dinner at a newly opened restaurant. But she refused because she wanted to laze at home. Then, he finally went alone and accidentally met Ebina, who also wanted to visit the restaurant, hoping to meet her older brother, a chef. Taihei was actually about to tell Ebina about his meeting with Koichiro, but instead, they met Kirie, who was choosing some colored pencils she wanted to buy. Kirie suddenly became embarrassed when Taihei and Ebina caught her buying colored pencils. Realizing that her best friend felt uncomfortable with Taihei's question, Ebina helped her by telling Taihei that they needed a lot of colored pencils for next week's art class. Not long after, Umaru arrived at the place and told Taihei that he wanted to have dinner at the restaurant. He complied with her wish and invited Ebina and Kirie to have dinner with them. Sometime later, Kirie reads the zodiac forecast on her cell phone, telling her that she will have good luck that day. She was very happy when she read it because that day she was going to the amusement park with her friends. She hopes she can spend some time alone with Umaru and ride the fun rides. However, when she was about to get on the bus that would take her to the amusement park, Kirie fell down because she tripped over her own shoelace. Not long after, Umaru, Kirie, Ebina, and Sylphyn finally arrive at the amusement park, where they then ride on a thrilling ride. Kirie almost fell again because she tripped over her shoelace. Luckily, Alex was right in front of her and caught her body from falling to the ground. He turned out to have just watched the Onisong concert held at the amusement park. He also greeted Sylphyn and her friends while distributing Onisong souvenirs to them. While everyone was having fun and looking happy, Kirie looked even more gloomy because she wasn't having any luck today, not according to her prediction. Seeing Kirie pouting, Umaru invited her to ride the Ferris wheel. Kirie suddenly became very happy because, finally, she could be alone with Umaru on the Ferris wheel. Umaru even tied her hair. The next day, Umaru is notified that she will receive a certificate of appreciation as the best student for achieving the highest score in her school. Besides Umaru, a student from a special class named Hikari Kongo also received a certificate of appreciation. Umaru was once offered to enter a special class because she got very good scores on the entrance exam, but she refuses and prefers to go to the regular class. A few days later, Kirie and Alex visit Umaru's house to watch anime. Alex then tells Umaru and Kirie about his past and reveals that he used to be a loner and didn't have many friends. But after moving to Japan, he became an otaku who loves anime and made friends with many people, including Taihei and Takeshi, his co-workers. Not long after, Alex said goodbye to Umaru and Kirie because he had to go home soon. On the way, he gets a call from Kano asking him to buy something and comes to the office immediately. Arriving at the office, Alex rushed to Kano's room and met Hikari Kongo. They already knew each other and seemed very close to each other. The scene then switches and shows Ebina reminiscing about her past when she was 7 years old. At that time, she had fainted because the weather was too hot. Her brother, Koichiro, was the one who helped her and took care of her until she fully recovered. But that day was the last day Ebina met with her brother because Koichiro went to Tokyo to achieve his dream of becoming a professional chef. Years later, Ebina decides to move to Tokyo to find out where her older brother is. But instead, she met Taihei, who reminded her of her brother and subconsciously had a crush on him. Turning to Kirie, she looked surprised to find out that her parents were going out of town for a few days, and she would be staying at home alone with her older brother, Takeshi. Since Kirie is not close with Takeshi, she goes to Umaru and begs her to let her stay at Umaru's house until her parents return home. Upon hearing that, Umaru immediately allowed her to stay at her house. Meanwhile, Taihei intended to stay at Kirie's house to accompany Takeshi. After making dinner for Umaru and Kirie, Taihei rushed to Takeshi's house. They spend the night doing fun things like reading comics and watching anime. While going to sleep, Kirie told Umaru about her childhood. Previously, Kirie was very close with her older brother, but one day, she was very angry with Takeshi for some reason, and until now has not been able to forget the incident that made her very angry with his older brother and chose to keep her distance from Takeshi by being rude to him. On the other hand, Takeshi apparently invites Taihei to drink at his house. He tells Taihei that Kirie used to be a sweet girl and was always gentle with him, but for some reason, she became very angry with him and always treated him harshly. In fact, Takeshi is very worried about her and hopes to mend his relationship with his sister. One day, Kirie and Umaru are reading a romantic comic. They suddenly became annoyed because the chapter ended at the wrong moment, making them very curious. Umaru confidently tells Kirie that the story in the comic will have a happy ending because the love story told by the author is very beautiful. Hearing that, Kirie was reminded of the story she was writing. So far, she doesn't really like romantic things and always gets irritated with people who are in love. Umaru then gave her a little advice about the story she was writing. Kirie was very happy because Umaru gave advice that aroused her enthusiasm, and she tried to be even better at writing stories. When going home, Kirie accidentally ran into Ebina, who had just returned from shopping. She openly said that Ebina actually harbored feelings of love for Taihei. Ebina, who heard her words, suddenly became very embarrassed and tried to dodge. But unexpectedly, Kirie wants to help her date Taihei. Summer vacation has arrived. Because Umaru spends most of her time lazing at home during the holidays, Taihei invites her to see the fireworks festival held in their city. At first, she refused his invitation, as she wanted to watch anime and play games all day. But after Taihei talked about the various snacks they could enjoy at the festival, Umaru decided to go with her brother to the fireworks festival. Not only that, but she also intends to invite her friends so they can go together to the fireworks festival. Meanwhile, Kirie, who was at Ebina's house, suggested Ebina express her love for Taihei while watching the fireworks festival. Ebina immediately rejected the idea because she had not prepared to express her love for him. At the same time, Umaru arrives at Ebina's house with Taihei and invites Ebina and Kirie to watch the fireworks festival. The four of them then visited Sylphyn's house to invite her. Seeing Umaru's arrival and her friend's arrival, Sylphyn invited them to her house first. Sylphyn apparently asked them to change clothes, saying that the moment watching the fireworks festival would be more memorable when wearing a yukata. Then, they looked happy while attending a very lively fireworks festival. They do many fun things, such as eating delicious snacks, playing traditional games, and watching fireworks together. A few days later, summer vacation ended, and Umaru had to return to school. While having lunch, Umaru told her friends that she was asked to come to the headmaster's office because the principal wanted to talk about the certificate of appreciation she received some time ago. The school apparently plans to display her certificate because, so far, only Taihei's award certificate has been displayed at the school. Hearing this, Ebina and the others became very impressed because Umaru and her brother were the best students in their school. Sylphyn frankly said she liked Taihei because he was very kind to her. Ebina, who heard Sylphyn's statement, suddenly became very shocked because she didn't expect to compete with Sylphyn for Taihei. On the way to her house, Umaru saw Taihei, who had just returned from shopping, and intended to surprise him. However, before she could do that, suddenly, a girl appeared in front of Taihei and hugged him. The girl seemed to know Taihei, but he didn't remember her. Umaru then tells Taihei that the girl is Hikari, one of the students at his school. Taihei invited Hikari into his house and served her sweet buns. When she was alone with Umaru, Hikari told Umaru that she knew about Umaru's identity, who was always lazy and liked to play games and watch anime. She wondered where did Hikari get to know so many things about her. Not long after, Taihei joined them, where he approached Hikari and became reminded of her, who is Kano's younger sister. She was happy that he finally remembered her and called Taihei his big brother. Umaru heard her calling Taihei his big brother, then raised her objections because, in this world, only Umaru could call him his big brother. But Hikari doesn't seem to care about Umaru and decides to go home, even though Taihei asks her to stay so they can have dinner together. Umaru then asked him about Hikari calling him brother. Taihei said he had known Hikari for a long time but didn't remember it. Umaru began wondering about the reason Hikari came to their house. Did she just want to meet Taihei, or did she have a specific purpose? The next day, Taihei told Umaru that Takeshi had just bought a new camera and given his old camera to him. He then asked Umaru to pose while he took her picture. While looking through the gallery folder on the camera, they immediately realized that Takeshi had not removed his memory card from the camera, so they could see Takeshi's old photos. Taihei then took out Takeshi's memory card and intended to return it to him when they met at the office. He turned out to give the camera so that Taihei could capture beautiful moments with his beloved sister because if Umaru grew up, maybe she would fall in love with a young man and rarely spend time with Taihei. And the next day, Taihei gave the memory card to Takeshi. One day, Umaru disguises herself as UMR and intends to visit an arcade game arena with Sylphyn. Arriving at the destination, the game arena was closed because it was being renovated. Sylphyn then takes her to an old-fashioned department store with a large playing area. Even though the playing field in that place is quite ancient, they seem very happy because they can do many fun things. The following days, Umaru and Sylphyn always make time to stop by the department store, even if it's just for lunch. Umaru then told Taihei about the old-fashioned department store and intended to invite her brother to visit the place. She was very surprised when Taihei informed her that the department store would soon be closed due to a lack of visitors. A few days later, the department store was finally completely closed and demolished because a new building would be built at the location. Umaru realized that Sylphyn knew about the department store about to close, but she still chose to go there so they could have good memories of that place before it was torn down. One day, Ebina visits Umaru's house with rice that her family sent from Akita. As an expression of gratitude for the gift of rice, Taihei intended to make a delicious dish they could enjoy together. Ebina said that she wanted to help him cook in the kitchen. Actually, she was very nervous if she had to be close to Taihei. But because Kirie suggested that Ebina attract Taihei's attention with her cooking skills, she finally got up the courage to do so. Umaru, who didn't want to be found out that she wasn't good at cooking, forced herself to help Taihei and Ebina cook in the kitchen. Suddenly, she almost caused a fire. Fortunately, Taihei quickly extinguished the stove fire she accidentally smothered in oil. After the stressful incident, they could finally enjoy the delicious dishes made by Taihei and Ebina. The next day, Umaru, who always played with her 2 pet hamsters, looked a little worried because she thought her pet hamsters were stressed because she was always invited to play. Moreover, Taihei warned her to take care of her pet hamsters with all her heart to avoid hurting them. However, she later finds out they enjoy playing with her. One day, Umaru, disguised as Umaru, went to the game arena with Sylphyn. Umaru gets a lot of gifts in the form of snacks because she is very good at playing with the claw machine. Sylphyn then invites Umaru to her house so they can enjoy the snack while drinking cola. Soon after, Sylphyn invites Umaru to play a POC game, but she immediately refused because the POC game is a game that is usually played by couples. After knowing this, Sylphyn felt very ashamed of Umaru for inviting her to play a POC game. The next day, Sylphyn invites Umaru to visit some of the places she used to visit as a child. She told Umaru that there was one place that really impressed her, but she forgot the place's name. After hearing her explanation about the place, Umaru took her to Lake Sagami, a place Sylphyn visited 10 years ago with Alex. She became very happy because, finally, she could visit that place again with someone special to her. Long story short, Umaru and her classmates are discussing the midterm exam that will be held tomorrow. Ebina looks very worried because she always gets bad grades on exams. Knowing this, Sylphyn invited them to study together at her house. While studying together, Umaru realized that Ebina could get pretty good grades. But Ebina always feels anxious and nervous, so she loses focus and can't answer exam questions properly. Therefore, they try to help Ebina overcome the anxiety she always experiences. Then, Kirie suggested that Ebina think about fun things during the exam to relax. But this method seems less effective. Umaru said that Ebina didn't have to worry about it because they were friends. Hearing her words, Ebina was reminded of the past when she first entered the school. At that time, she felt so nervous that it was very difficult to socialize with her new friends. Ebina wants to be friends with Kirie, but she hears bad rumors about her. Ebina then tries to be friends with Sylphyn, but Sylphyn is very competitive and always passionate, so she feels inferior when she is around her. Ebina then meets Umaru, who is beautiful and smart. After meeting the 3 of them, she hopes she can befriend them one day. In the end, she becomes good friends with them and is very grateful for their friendship. After thinking about her friends, Ebina was able to get rid of the worries in her heart and became more relaxed. Surprisingly, she managed to get a pretty good score on the midterm exam. As time goes on, Hikari becomes more and more frequent visits to Umaru's house to meet Taihei and enjoy his dishes far more delicious than Kanao's. One night, when Hikari was visiting Taihei's house, then he was reminded of the past, when he was in high school when Kanao invited him to his house and introduced him to Hikari. At that time, Taihei taught Hikari about constellations, and she apparently still remembers it. Taihei, who wants Umaru and Hikari to get along, invites them to make pancakes together. A few days later, Umaru told Taihei she wanted to eat pizza. She suggested they buy it, but he insisted on making his own because he thought homemade food would be much tastier. Not long after, Takeshi and Alex came to visit their house. Since his friends came to visit, Taihei decided to hold a homemade okonomiyaki party against Umaru's request for pizza. Umaru intends to avenge her brother by messing up the okonomiyaki dish he is cooking. Surprisingly, she turns out to make it so delicious, making her forget her revenge. Sometime later, Taihei tells Umaru that he has to work late on Christmas Eve. Umaru then takes Ebina to a shopping center to buy Christmas gifts. Meanwhile, Kanao, who is very considerate of Hikari, intends to make her beloved sister happy on Christmas Day. She had thought of taking Taihei to her house and meeting Hikari because Hikari really liked him, but because she always felt nervous talking to him, so Kanao didn't even dare to invite Taihei to her house. Afterward, Sylphyn invites Umaru, Kirie, and Ebina to her house for a New Year celebration. They later decided to play Hanatsuki, a traditional Japanese game similar to racket games like badminton but without a net. They played with a rectangular wooden paddle and a brightly colored shuttlecock. They seemed very happy celebrating the New Year together. After that, Umaru received many allowances from her brothers, Takeshi, Alex, and Kirie. She intended to save the money, but she just spent it. Taihei then gave her an extra allowance of 500 yen. Instead of thanking her beloved brother, Umaru said that Taihei was a stingy person. This is the end of the anime. The moral that can be learned from this anime is that friendship and brotherhood are important things in this world. Therefore, never betray your friends or your family, and try to always help them. Be a good person if you want good things to always come to us, because being a good person attracts other great things.